Hello and welcome to the Gremlins garden. In this series I will be showing you how to plan and grow your own organic edible garden week by week throughout the year. I'm located in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State specifically, USDA Zone 8A, which means that our lowest temperatures reach 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 12 to negative 9 degrees Celsius, and the highest it ever gets is in the upper 90s, though our typical summer temperatures are in the high 60s to the high 70s, which corresponds to about 20 to 26 degrees Celsius. The Pacific Northwest is also known as a maritime climate, meaning from spring, winter, and fall we have relatively high levels of humidity in the air and rainfall. So that also means that we have higher rates of fungal diseases such as black spot, powdery mildew, and rust. We also have the temperature buffering action of the ocean, meaning that our seasons are cooler in general without so much fluctuation as you would see inland on the other side of the mountains. Most garden centers will begin to carry cold season vegetables relatively soon if they aren't already. However, it's not too late for you to start most of them from seed, which is also the most cost-effective method. It's also fairly easy time of year to be doing it because most of the pests that would bother your spring and summer crops are starting to go dormant for the year, and the fall rains will keep your garden watered so you have less watering to stay on top of. Okay, so let's break this down. A 1-ounce bag of peas costs about $2.40 retail, and you can expect to get about 100 seeds in the bag. With an 80% germination rate, you're going to get about 80 seeds that will germinate and grow, and about 20 that will be unviable. So you spent about 3 cents for each seed. So if you compare that to buying a 4-pack of peas already started at the store, they usually go for a retail of about $2. So if you started your 4 peas from seed, you've spent 12 cents for 4 plants compared to $2 for 4 plants, for a savings of $1.88 for every single 4 plants that you plant. Other costs to consider would be soil if you're going to be starting plants in containers rather than direct sowing. You can, however, use your own garden soil to cut down on the cost here. If your own garden soil tends to form a crust on the top, you do want to mix in some compost or some other matter that will prevent a crust from forming on the top, because this can make it hard for seeds to push through the soil when they're first germinating. You can cut down on the cost here if you transplant your plants before they need to be fertilized. Plants come with a little bit of energy, enough to get them to sprout and to, push up through the soil to the point that they can start photosynthesizing on their own. So if you transplant them relatively quickly after that point, then you don't need to fertilize them while they're in containers, and you can just put them straight in the ground. And when it comes to time, you obviously spend more time with the starts when you start them from seed than when you buy them already started. You did cut down a little bit on cost, but what is your time worth? When it comes to starting seeds, I personally find that to be the most fun part of the entire endeavor. So for me, it's not so much work as it is fun, and I consider it worth my time, but that's something that you have to decide for yourself. So how do you decide what to grow? Most importantly, what do you like to eat? How much can you eat or store? And how much do you have space for in your current garden? It's not a great idea to plant crops that you have to go out of your way to eat and prepare, especially if you know deep down you really don't want to eat them and you're not going to eat them. However, fall is a really good time for you kale haters to make an exception because it provides some ornamental interest when most other plants are dying back and aren't really looking very good. It comes in a lot of different varieties, and it's actually sold as an ornamental along with ornamental cabbages. They're edible, but they provide a lot of interest in the wintertime when all of your other plants kind of look like crap. So maybe make an exception. Depending on your precise zone, it might be a little bit late in the season for starting certain seeds, such as cauliflower or broccoli or Romanesco, so you might be more successful this time of year if you bought them as starts, and planned ahead for next year for starting them a little bit earlier, like I did not do. Seeds to start for your fall garden include amaranth, for greens, not grains, you don't have enough time to get grains, arugula, fava beans, beets, broccoli, broccoli rabe, Romanesco, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, chervil, chicory, cilantro, collards, endive, escarole, and other gourmet greens, fennel, the bulb type, also known as finocchio, kohlrabi, kale, leeks, lettuce, mustard greens, pak choi, parsley, peas, radish, scallions, also known as green onions, spinach, and Swiss chard. Oh, and turnips. Hi, kitty. For each type of crop, there are several different varieties to choose from. For example, beets come in red, gold, white, and striped, and each of those have their own special name, like Touchstone Gold or Chioggia Guardsmark. So choose a variety that is adapted to the season. For example, choose a carrot that advertises it will store in the ground without cracking for winter harvest, rather than choosing one that says that it's amazing for summertime. Now, I don't recommend that you go buy every single variety of plant that I just listed, especially if you're a beginning gardener. It's a good idea to try to start with 2 to 3 varieties and work your way up from there. Learn what they need and really become an expert on those plants rather than trying to become a professional overnight and learn every single plant at once. Your odds of success will be a lot lower if you're trying to remember more than is possible and reasonable at one time. Also, gardening should be fun and mentally relaxing. It shouldn't be something that stresses you out and makes you feel like you have a second job on top of your other job. Now let's talk vendors. My personal favorites are Johnny's Selected Seeds, Territorial Seed, and Bear Creek Heirloom Seed. Johnny's is located in Maine. They have competitive retail pricing, high germination rates, and a very large organic selection. I happen to like them a lot. They also offer discounts on shipping if you order over a certain amount of seeds. I believe it's $200. Territorial Seed Company comes in close second. They're located closer in Oregon, so if you're worried about where the seeds have been grown, these were all grown in the Pacific Northwest, so they're highly adapted, although I haven't had any problems with Johnny's Seed Company. They have pretty good germination rates and a large organic selection as well. Lastly, I really like Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds because they have rare seeds. They're all open pollinated. It's hard to find some of these varieties from other people, and they're historical varieties, and they have lots of good information in their catalog and on their website. Okay. However, just because these are the ones that I like doesn't mean that you shouldn't try any others. I recommend that you go out, you Google, you test out different varieties, you see what's available in your local stores, and you figure out which vendors you like the best and which ones you have the most success with. A quick note on the vendors that I did show up here is that all of these companies do not carry genetically modified seeds. We'll talk more about flowers in another video, but I really quickly wanted to mention that some of the flowers that grow in our area need to be what's called cold stratified. They need to be exposed to cold and wet temperatures for a certain amount of time, otherwise the seed will not germinate. These include plants like columbine and penstemon, and these ones you can also simulate the cold stratification by putting them in the fridge later in the season if you miss out on cold stratifying them now. We'll touch more on this later in another video, so you don't need to concern yourself with it too much. But you can also be planting pansies and violets because they're very cold hardy and they're edible. So that's another thing to just keep in mind. And lastly, I do really quickly want to mention Phacelia. Lacy Phacelia, it has several different names. The botanical is Phacelia tannacetifolia. This is an excellent plant for bees. It's fairly hardy. I believe it's hardy to about 18 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's one of the top 20 nectar producers for bees. So it produces nectar during times of year when not a whole lot of other plants are, and it can make the difference in a hive surviving winter. So if you've got space, I really recommend that you plant this, and it can also be turned in as a cover crop. That's it for now. Next time we'll get our hands in the soil, we'll plant some seeds. See you then on the Gremlin's Garden. TV.